the freezer we got from Costco this week.
Do you see anyone else? So I see Karen. Is that our only?
Scott. Scott.
Oh, there's Scott.
I'm not seeing you.
Okay. So I'll say all the names, but
Y'all can sit down, you know.
I'll have them come up and just give them a little handshake.
Whoa, celebrate.
It's a celebration.
Okay.
That's channeling my inner bass right then.
Right, yeah, that was good. I know you can do it, girl.
All right, so we have already called this meeting to order. We just came out of executive session, and so I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 6th Village Council meeting. And to start off, one of our favorite things that we get to do is bring in a new team member. So I believe Mayor Canine is going to swear in our new officer. So come on up.
Good. And I will ask Officer Burge to come up now. This is the ceremonial swearing in, and it is done so that the community can see the officer, so get a good look at this. Before we do this, and I want the camera going this way so they can see it. And we want to thank everyone who's here tonight for this very important swearing in, especially the officers and those of you who come to observe. With no further ado, you will repeat after me. Raise your right hand. I, Paige Burge, solemnly swear
I, Paige Burge, solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and obey the laws of the United States
and obey the laws of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and that I will, in all respects,
and that I will, in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the Village of Yellow Springs,
of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Peace Officer.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Peace Officer.
Congratulations.
All right, welcome aboard. All right, thanks everyone. All right.
The fun just starting.
Head to the brewery.
Can we come?
Yeah. Take the gun off It's a nice support group.
Yeah, really.
Oh, okay. All right, so next up, something else that we're excited about this evening is to formally thank our members of the Citizen Committee that helped us with our very extensive search for a new village manager. And I want to go ahead and read the names of committee members that are not here tonight, and then I'm going to have a few come up and present a certificate myself. So we had Cheryl Durgans, Trent Fisher, Kate Hamilton, Dino Pilata, Susan Jennings, Anthony Salmonson, Jeremiah Gaddy, Bettina Solis, Laura Curlis, Christopher Cox, Janet Mueller, Karen Wintrow, and Philip Renfro. And I'm going to come down for the other two. Karen McKee. Thank you so much for your service. Yes, and thank you also for, actually, we'll get a picture. Yeah, and really, thank you for organizing the senior center event.
Oh.
That was so amazing.
Well done. Thank you.
Thanks
I
a
was
lot.
grateful. Thank
All
you very
right.
much. Good.
And last but certainly not least, Scott Olsterholm. All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Gonna get a little shot here. Hey, thanks for
Thank you,
driving.
Scott.
Keeping us safe.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate
Awesome job.
it.
It was great to work with you.
Okay, and I am actually going to put the announcement and transition plan together when we read the resolution. I think everybody knows from the paper who we've selected, but I know that council members want to say a few words, yes?
Yeah, I want to say a few words about the team that
The
helped.
citizen
with-
committee, thank you.
So, I just really want to acknowledge and thank everyone, all the citizens and Judy, and council members, but in particular the citizens who helped with the village manager search. It was something that happened very quickly, and everyone took leadership. There was not one person, fortunately or unfortunately, directing it. Everyone stepped up and took leadership, and I was so impressed. And I also wanted to do another shout out to Judy, because of anyone, she was the one that was helping to hold things together as they were swirling around.
Somebody that
so,
did definitely took a lot of leadership, so
Yeah.
thanks, Judy.
Yeah.
And I think everyone, for the most part, agreed that it was an incredible process. It was a really difficult decision for council. We had 4 great finalists, and we spent a lot of time making that decision. Okay, I know Lisa Abel's here for an announcement, so I'll have you come up next.
Well, hello.
Hello.
It's been quite a while since I've stood in front of council, so a little out of practice. I am currently convening the Yellow Springs Community Development Corporation. Is that right? We're practicing saying it right. And I wanted to just make the community aware that we've been working on an initiative that we've been keeping kind of close to our vest for the past few months, but it's time to let everybody know that we've been working on retaining EnviroFlight, the R&D and part that is about 22 employees right now. And we're working with some builders to see if we can get them situated out at the CBE. They've expressed interest in perhaps moving their headquarters here as well. And they're looking at a job growth of somewhere between 8 and 10 jobs in the next 3 to 5 years at, pretty decent pay. So we feel the CDC feels it's important to retain this business, and I think that the CBE is a good spot for them. And what I wanted to encourage you all, and anybody watching or anybody who might read about this, is that they're at a critical point in their decision-making process. And they could really use some encouragement from this community. So let them know, if you like the business, you want them to stay, now would be a good time to contact them. They've got a website, it's enviroflight.net. They have an email address, I think it's info@enviroflight.net. They're on Facebook. You could actually send a snail mail to their offices here. And of course, you could always grab some of their employees around 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Thursday or Friday and invite them for a beer at the brewery. So any of those things will work, but I just want to let everybody know that that's a big initiative for us, and please encourage them to hang there with us.
Thank you, Lisa. And Lisa, I want to also thank you on behalf of the Community Development Corporation, taking initiative with this. I want to be really clear as council president that any mixed messages that there might have been about, where the opportunities are, I certainly want to be clear that we love EnviroFlight. It's a great business, great jobs, and we really want to keep that business in this community. So thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
I have a few other announcements, but does anyone else, do you want to talk about Vector?
I do.
First, let me say that we are having trouble with the Wi-Fi in this building, so if we have problems with our live stream getting interrupted, that is why, and we sincerely apologize. We are working to fix that. I do want to talk about Vectren. They are working downtown tonight from 8 p.m. until, is it 8 a.m., Johnny? 6 a.m. They will not, then after tonight, they will not be in the village until next Sunday night, when they will come back again, Sunday through Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Please do not park on the posted streets during that time. They are working at night at the request of the businesses and with the permission of the council, and we've had many, many problems that is delaying their work. Last night, some cars were being towed. We don't want that to happen, but Vectren has to get their work done. They are spending a lot of extra money to do this at night at the request of the businesses in the village. If it continues, they will begin to work during the day, which will far more disrupt what happens downtown. So if we could possibly speak to our neighbors, get the word out, pass it along, please do not park in the no parking posted areas from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., Sunday through Wednesday nights. Through Friday morning now? Okay.
It's been Friday, Sunday night at 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. Friday morning.
Okay. I thought they were only working 4 nights. Okay, they're going to work Thursday nights as well. So it will be 8 p.m., 6 a.m., Sunday through Thursday nights. So it will end on Friday morning at 6 a.m. So please do not park down there. We really don't want Vectren to tow your car. It is Vectren towing your car, and they have the right to do so in the work zone. So, in addition, I have one other announcement. We had hoped to do a utility roundup program, canvas of the residents this weekend. We had put out a call for volunteers for that. We were going to do it a couple of weeks ago, and then we were going to do it again this weekend. We have not gotten any volunteers for either of our canvases, so this weekend's canvas is canceled, as was the last one.
However, regarding the utility roundup, perhaps we would be more likely to have volunteers who would come to the brewery and drink.
Right?
Because, right? I mean, go door to door, not so much, but maybe come
Have a beer.
on Thursday to the brewery on May 16th, September 26th, and, Halloween, that'll be a fun one, October 31st, to have beverages from 7 to 9 p.m. And the brewery makes very generous donations of a percentage of profit towards the utility roundup program. So in addition to rounding up, come drink with us. How professional. Thank you.
Okay, Mary Ann?
Yeah. As a lot of people know, we're in the midst of an assessment of the Yellow Springs Police Department and the relationship of the department with the community. On May 21st, we're having a community meeting that we want everyone who has an interest in this to attend. It's entitled A New Approach, an appreciative inquiry to build collaborative policing. It will be Tuesday, May 21st, from 7 to 9 p.m. in the gym at the Bryan Center. There will be an ad in this week's paper and next week's paper, and we're hoping that there might be an article. And, well, that's it. Oh, and it's also co-sponsored by the Human Relations Commission, 365 Project, James A. McKee Association, and the Village Mediation Program.
And I just want to mention, Judy, if we can make sure that these events are on the Facebook page, as well as the website, of course.
Yeah.
Patty, you had another announcement?
I did. I would like to give kudos to our electric crew, who have once again received a certificate of excellence in reliability from American Public Power. Johnny does a thing called Reliability Tracker, which tracks every single outage in the village and its duration and its cause and all this. And as you can see from the certificate, the Village of Yellow Springs has significantly exceeded the average for all U.S. utilities for reliable electric service. So while we do have our share of outages, we are doing way better than a lot of other places. So kudos to Johnny Burns and his electric crew for all the work they do, and to all the crews.
Thank you.
I have another announcement.
Okay, and Mary Ann has another announcement.
Yeah, so on Saturday, May 18th, will be the annual Shred It event that's sponsored by the Chamber. This time, it usually has been on Earth Day. It's been moved this time. It will be in, is it going to be in the John Bryan?
It is in the John Bryan,
John
this
Bryan
parking lot of
lot.
this building.
From 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're also taking electronic equipment and batteries and things like that. The Environmental Commission and Community Solutions is also helping with this.
All right, great. A few other things. I want to thank our police department and the fire department for supporting opening day for Trails. It's a great event, hot dogs, it was a really nice day. There were lots of community organizations out. And I know everyone had a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I was at the Dayton event, so I didn't have as much fun. I know that Patty has in her report that we have started spring cleanup week. So we'll talk more about that. That started today. Make sure to put all your big objects out with the trash. And then lastly, I realized our meeting came before somebody's birthday, somebody very special, and that is our own village manager, Patty Bates. So I want to wish a belated birthday to Patty, since we didn't have a meeting before that. So, and what, you just turned 40? Was
Yeah,
that,
I turned 60 and I claim it, so.
All
I'm
right,
good with it.
there you go, see? All right, thanks for all you do, Patty.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that.
One more, Bike Walk to School Day.
Oh, go ahead.
So it's Wednesday of this week is Bike Walk to School Day. Those of you who are familiar with the village know this is a pretty darn big event. I myself will be over at Mills Lawn. I believe it's at 9, Brian, in the morning?
Yeah, it's a late start, so yeah, so they'll be doing that from 9 to 10.
9 to
And so we get a really good participation rate, usually over 70% of our students bike or walk. And this year, very exciting, the middle school, high school is going to have a bike walk to school event also, and they're going to really be highlighting safety. So we got some more bike lights. ODOT mailed them to us like overnight, and reflectors. So yeah, so we'll be passing those out. So attend one of those events.
Yeah, and the PD is usually present and, you know, mingling with the crowd, with the kids, and helping them understand safety and talking about that. It's always a good event. So, and it does help us with our Safe Routes to School applications as an event, part of our school travel plan, so.
Yeah, we just put in an application to try to get funding to finish the sidewalk on Limestone.
Yeah, Johnny
is
and
really
I
important.
and Chris Bongiorno presented to ODOT in Columbus a couple of Fridays ago on that one.
All right.
Can I make a really quick addition? It's come to my attention that in the past, people were confused about what could be brought to the Shred It event, and that it's just paper, no electronics.
Oh, that
Just
changed.
paper.
Oh,
But they
Good.
did change
She-
it this
she
year.
did.
Some-
yeah,
This is
Karen.
from Karen,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
hot off the
Okay, well, good to know.
chat board.
I won't bring my TV.
Oh. Okay, thanks for that update. And now we have our consent agenda, which has the minutes from our 2 April meetings. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
I actually had one minor change to, oh, I'm sorry, to,
Well, so if you're gonna consent, you just have to consent, but if it's minor, you can just let me know about it later. If it's
okay, I
substantive,
will
we
let
can't
you know
consent.
about it later.
And so if it is, we take it right off there and put it in the regular business.
Okay,
Just minor?
it's minor.
Okay. So do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. Review of the agenda. Anything we need to add, move, change?
Want to have a discussion about the dig once policy or whatever it is. And I guess my concern or question, we'll talk about it, but I think
Okay.
I'd like to have a discussion.
All right, so we'll put that under old business.
Yeah.
Anything else? Actually, I would like to briefly talk about the lodging tax and starting to use that money for community development. So I think that's a new business item, if that's okay. All right, under new business.
I've got a question for you on that. Just, will that in any way require our finance director? If so, if we put it at the front of old
No,
business?
it's just gonna be an introductory.
Not a problem. I just
so
didn't
yeah.
want her to have to.
So I
stay.
just
Okay.
wanna put something out there real quick. Okay. All right, Mary Ann, petitions
Yes,
and
yes.
communications.
So we got a list of those people who will collect swarms of bees. Do you have that list, Judy, if someone,
I do.
okay.
Yep, there's
So
a
if someone in the
swarm.
village has a swarm,
you
they
up.
can call Judy.
We all have it, yeah.
There are a lot of people that'll come and collect your swarm.
Yep.
We got a thank you from Jim DeLong, who is the girls softball coach at the high school, thanking us for the great state of the Gaunt Park ball fields. Karen Wintro submitted a map with the Vectren, where the Vectren pipes are being replaced, as well as people to contact at Vectren. And I'll just mention, since it was in the packet, the Certificate of Excellence for the Electric Department for electric reliability of service and restoration of service. And as those of us have been observing and know about climate change, we understand that it's probably increasing weather events, increasing wet events, increasing wind. So these outages and our ability to get on them quickly is important. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, legislation is fairly sparse tonight, but the resolution that we have to read tonight is very exciting. And so with that, Judy, I'd love for you to read this resolution in full.
Indeed, this is Resolution 2019-17, appointing Josue Almer Salmaron as village manager. Whereas the Village of Yellow Springs engaged in a national search to identify potential candidates for the position of village manager, and whereas village residents actively participated in a process to identify and interview 4 finalists, and residents were also provided the opportunity to share their observations and recommendations regarding the qualifications of the finalists, and whereas Village Council has interviewed the finalists and considered the comments and recommendations of village residents and team members, Council is determined and wishes to engage Josue Almer Salmaron as village manager. Now therefore, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio hereby resolves that, Section 1, Josue Almer Salmaron is appointed to serve as village manager for the Village of Yellow Springs to serve at the pleasure of council. Section 2, the duties of the village manager shall be those as provided for in the charter for the village manager and pursuant to the employment agreement attached to this resolution as Exhibit A. Section 3, the employment for services of the village manager is hereby approved in substantially the same form as Exhibit A. The President of Council is hereby authorized to execute the employment agreement and to take such other actions on behalf of the village as may be necessary to ensure this appointment. Section 4, the village manager shall be considered an employee on full-time status. As provided in the contract, the employee shall receive the salary and benefits as provided for in the employment agreement. The actions of this council are pursuant to home rule powers of the village. Section 5, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption. It is the intent of the council that the employment agreement will be effective upon signature by the affected parties.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
I move.
Second?
Okay, so a little bit of discussion. I want to begin with reading a note from Josue that he sent actually earlier today. Dear Yellow Springs residents and council, it is with great enthusiasm that I accept the appointment of village manager. It will be both a joy and privilege to work collaboratively towards achieving the goals that the Yellow Springs community has boldly declared to be an inclusive and welcoming community where everyone can grow and thrive in a sustainable way. Sincerely, Josue Salmeron. I also wanted to mention that Josue's official start date is June 17th, and I believe we will talk for a few minutes about a transition plan. But before we do that, I wanted to make sure that any council members had an opportunity to talk about our decision. So, Kanetta, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I am really excited about Josue coming in. I do agree that we had a tough choice to make, and I'm really excited about the perspective that he'll bring to Yellow Springs, and I think that his leadership style is exactly what we need.
All right. Lisa?
Yeah, I share that enthusiasm. And I guess I'd like to speak directly to the one concern that has been expressed to me by a couple of community members, and say why I wasn't concerned by it. And that is the concern that he hadn't held the exact role somewhere else. He has not been the manager of a city or of a village. And, you know, that's true, but this is why I don't think that that's concerning. I think that what we know about how people lead in organizations is that lateral movement is a really powerful way to grow skill, and that people can have, I kind of think of a skill set like a deck of cards. You know, you have these cards, you don't always use them in every meeting or every interaction or every day, but you have them. These are skills that you have. And I think the risk when you hire a person who has had the same role sequentially in different settings, and particularly when they've been successful, is they think, oh, I was really successful, now I'm going to go there and do exactly the same thing, and I'll be successful. And that's not how it is, because in every different setting, in every different community or culture, things are going to go a little bit differently. And so the thing that I'm the most excited about with Josue is I think he has a really powerful deck of cards. I think that he had extremely actionable and wise ideas about building community and police trust, deep expertise in housing projects. He's a certified project management professional, and for any of you who have any visibility into that, that is a very difficult credential to obtain. And what that means to me is that he's going to be great at strategic planning, and he's going to be great at project implementation. And, you know, these are the things that I think are the key issues to align with our village goals. The other thing that I really have a tremendous amount of confidence in is that we have a wonderful group of people who work here at the village, who have deep domain expertise. Johnny Burns has deep domain expertise. Colleen Harris has deep domain expertise, right? So everyone on the team is going to have to, you know, pull together on some of the very important details that perhaps the manager doesn't have to know every single thing about every single thing. So I'm really excited about Josue. I think he's going to bring a new perspective, and I'm really excited to see the direction that his leadership will take us.
Well, I could certainly just say ditto, because that was certainly how I feel. I, too, am a certified project management professional, so I can certainly appreciate what Josue brings to the table. Something, and I haven't read the paper, so I'm not sure if my comments made the article, but something that we, I think, have forgotten was that council did let an RFP to have a consultant come in and do the work that we and the village residents did. And part of that RFP suggested that we were willing and interested in looking at non-traditional candidates, looking at candidates who haven't been, to Lisa's point, just taking that same box of tools or cards, you know, from one location to the next. So I think it's important that we, again, I've said the way Josue had such definite answers to questions, and I've said it before, it seemed like he knew the question you were going to ask before you asked it, because he was so definite in his responses. Steve Jobs, and certainly founder of a very successful company, said that smart people hire smart people. And to Lisa's point, we've got smart people here, and we're asking Josue to come in and manage those smart people and continue to encourage and develop and equip those folks to keep doing the excellent work that they're doing. So they are the subject matter experts, and he, I believe, will manage them. The resolution really says a lot, how we did have a lot of village resident support, and we couldn't have done it without everyone. So it was a very, I think, exhaustive but very complete effort, and we had some very good candidates. You know, when you look at the data that we gathered from the reviews, I mean, someone loved, absolutely loved each of the candidates. Somebody did not quite love each of the candidates. And so I really think we owe it to the residents and the other team members that we worked with to put together all that effort. And I really believe we made a good choice. The process sort of speaks for itself. The process allowed us to bring some good candidates here, and I think to make a good choice. And I really do look forward to what might potentially be a transformative selection as our next village manager.
Well, I'd like to thank Patty for the 5 years of her service and the team that's worked under Patty, because I think if we hadn't felt confident in what Patty and her team have been able to do in the 5 years, it would have made it a more difficult decision to hire someone who didn't have that background. So thank you. I also think that Yellow Springs, as we have noted, is an aging community. We tend to, some of us say, oh, it's not like it used to be, lamenting. And I think that hiring Josue is going to be bringing in youth and diversity and a kind of new energy that I'm hopeful will help Yellow Springs look to the future and not just to the past.
Well said. I want to also appreciate Patty for navigating the waters of Yellow Springs very effectively and building such a strong team. And I like Mary Ann, and I think the rest of council, that has really laid the groundwork for looking at what other skills did we need to add to the team that could complement what we already have. And Josue is an excellent, proven manager. He's a leader as well, and he knows this community. I think everybody knows that he went to Antioch College, and while we appreciated the other candidates' appreciation and love for Yellow Springs, for somebody to really understand, you know, it's not just about tie-dyes and it's not just about yoga, but there's so much complexity and sophistication to our community. There's not just one type of person that fits and that makes Yellow Springs what it is. And that sophistication and savviness was very important to us. That 3-day process was huge. I mean, we really, I mean, it was just amazing to watch those 4 candidates who were all really skilled and really different work in different groups, you know, whether it was the lunch at Antioch College, where it was like a speed dating thing, or the public forum, or, you know, having to go through all of our team members and be grilled by them. And then after those 3 days, we had really tough final interviews. And we were really blown away by Josue's ability to think tactically, as Lisa mentioned, the strategic aspect. And he really convinced us that his skill set is transferable in a way that we need to address our village policing needs, to achieve our goals around affordability and housing, to deliver on community and economic development. And as Kevin said, one of my favorite words as well, transformative, I think, is where we're at. We've built a great base. Patty's been at the helm and been really steady and really open and collaborative and allowed council and the community to be involved. And Josue is going to pick up on that and bring all the things that you heard from council. So The few people that might be skeptical, I don't think it's going to take them very long to be won over, and we're really excited. So, thank you. Yes, Patty.
So I just wanted to say, I sent Megan a quote, but unfortunately I got sidetracked and she got it too late to use in the paper. But here's what I sent to Megan. Josue Salmaran will be a great addition to the village team. He brings a fresh eye to the issues and also has the local history to understand the village and its values. And I think that's what I've heard from this council. And I could not agree with you more that this team that he will have working with him will be able to complement what he does, because they're the best that I have ever worked with.
All right. And with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. All right, awesome. Okay, next up, Johnny, I think you've got a special report for us?
It was supposed to be last month, but the April storm got me.
It was one of those
So,
few power outages.
It was, yeah, one of the fast action power outages affected the south end of town, but while 5 months have already come and almost gone. So I don't want to go through it all. I'll just hit up highlights on it, but you can see that the Public Works has been very busy. Anywhere from cutting grass with rain in 10 days solid, or putting up power poles. So we have actually, we got 2 more power poles to change out on Corey Street once Antioch is out for break. We have to do some power outage to be able to change those 2 poles out for that Dayton Power and Light changed out for the 5G cell tower that they'd run fiber on. So we get the opportunity to transfer onto their new poles. We did start a substation checklist. Within the first 3 weeks, we have 4 pieces of equipment that was broke. So we have actually got 4 of them, or 4 sent out, 2's back in service. We have 2 temporaries in there now, and the other 2 should be back anytime this week. So the checklist item that come as part of the technical conference that Ben and myself went to, and it's knowing the equipment. And so they go in there weekly, run the regulators up, run them down, make sure they're functioning correct. And actually, those 4 pieces had a dip switch that was not working. So the locating, that number's quite high because Vectron's in there. But Vectron has come in to do their 4.1 miles of gas line, which has fast-tracked us on GISing and with the locates. Normally, we're right around 200 locates. Today, we're probably up near 500 right now. So when they're talking about locating, we're locating anything electric underground, water underground. Vectron is doing all the storm sewers and all the sanitary sewers. They're actually running cameras up every sewer, down every sewer, every storm, because they got to know where it runs. So at the same time, they're marking on the street where all the laterals are. So we're hoping to collect all that information with the new GIS system that we got up and running.
Do you want to mention what they've located so far that you weren't aware of?
I will here in just a little bit.
Good news first.
Yeah. With the addition of having another full-time lineman, what we've done so far is we've changed out 20 poles this year alone, from January to actually the beginning of April. That's including some streetlight poles, but we're fast-tracking that. I can't buy material almost as fast as them guys are changing it out. And they're trying to do that because we know water's coming up, and we're gonna have to break off to do the unidirectional flushing, so they was trying to get as much done as possible. So hopefully here pretty soon, I'll be able to give you an update that maybe we can go back out for pole testing and maybe be lower in numbers. We had 2 problem circuits. We actually got more than that, but I'll just identify the 2. One is Beatty Hughes Park, and the other one is on North Stafford. We had some pretty massive trees in them areas. We had to get them trimmed. We actually took down and we replaced all the poles and all the open wire and got it up to date. So hopefully those two sections won't be give us any problems. The next section will be what we call the south side of town, which is Orton, Spring Glen, and in the Meadow area. And we have actually, in November, we actually spent almost 7 hours there because every time we got something up, it would fall down in the ice storm. They just got done tree trimming that area, and everybody's pine trees are falling towards the electric. I don't know if the electric's pulling it that way, but that's the way it's happening. We got 100-foot pines that are hitting our lines. So with the pole change-out program for this year, we've actually contracted with High Tech Electric to come in and bore underground, and we're moving our primary from overhead to underground so we can eliminate the power lines and not have to worry about having major power outages. Because if something goes out in the south of the town, that's the first place we go look, because when it goes out, they knock the rest of the people out. So hopefully we'll get that up and running. Another problem we had was at Whitehall Farm, right there, Whitehall, DeWines area right there. We had one tree that fell and it took out 4 poles. So we have actually in the process of putting it underground all the way back to Whitehall Farm and then to the DeWines little area right there. We're transferring it underground. Next one was out here for the Bryant Center. We're going to eliminate the pole in the corner. We actually drilled 3 conduits under the road so we can bring AT&T and fiber across the road plus electric. So we actually put that under Dayton Street because Time Warner's right there on that corner. We got to get them over here. So that's a little bit of what we've been doing on the electric side. The water side, we did have 5 water main breaks. Hopefully I don't cause one by saying that word, but 5 water main breaks. They were fairly reasonable to fix in a short amount of time. We actually had 2 in one day, and they worked nonstop. They went from one break to another break. The fire hydrant on Meadow Lane, I would give my guys props. I had 2 contractors that actually dug that up and refused to fix it. And the guys are like, it can't be that hard. So they took it upon themselves. We got the valves working. We was able to shut it down. They spent about 6 hours. They replaced that hydrant, and the village ain't out nothing. So the contractors, they was going to charge us about $4,000 to $5,000 to fix it, and I was like, so the guys took it upon themselves. They got it done. The next one, I give you kudos, Brian. LJB, they've been wonderful. We don't have it out to where everybody can see it, but the GIS system, both those maps were blank until about 6 weeks ago. The complete electrical system, LJB was able to take without us going out there and personally marking it all. They was able to overlap some of our good maps, and we now have a pretty good idea on our electric, and then the guys are going out there and double checking it. With Miller Pipeline doing our projects in town for the water, every one of those points on the map, and this is nothing compared to what they've got now. Every meter, every curb stop, every corp stop, if it's water related and it's in the gas line area, we have it identified. We can go within 1 inch. If it's underground, if it's under snow or whatever, we can go 1 inch and dig down. We're comfortable with there. So with, it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's the Miller Pipeline. We're having to find all the curb stops. We're having to GIS it on top of locating it. So things are moving good, and I do appreciate the push in that direction. They've been awesome. In the rain days, we've got cases of LED lamps, and the electric crew's been coming in here instead of getting down soaked in the downpouring rain. They've been coming in here. We're about probably 75 to 80% changed out in this building with LED lamps. So hopefully our consumption costs will go down in the years to come. we are in the process, our old street lights that I put up in 2011, when I was a contractor, they only had a 5-year warranty. So they've been failing, so we've switched to an LED. And so when they go bad now, we're just changing and putting LEDs. We've probably got about 10 in town so far. Banners, we have installed a lot of them. But what people need to realize is this is a first come, first served basis. So Lisa contacted me over a year ago about the Women of April, correct?
Yep.
And I had somebody call and they're like, hey, we need to put banners up. I said, I'm sorry, that was taken a year ago. So the faster you can get the information of the village, the better chances you are to get a spot. We do have a large banner on the north end of town and one on the south end of town. And there's an ongoing calendar that Ruth Ann has the ability and I have the ability to look at to see if anybody's on them poles or even downtown. April, we got hit by a little small windstorm.
Yeah.
These are just some pictures. People didn't realize what was going on. This is on the south end of town. The guys was able to get out there, get everything transferred, get town back up, and then we dealt with that until probably 11 o'clock. That happened at 8 o'clock in the morning. We replaced 3 poles and I think 9 spans of wire plus a bunch of house services that day. So the guys and gals with Rose was out there with us. I just told everybody to meet at the farm and we would attack it like a team, and we did. Half the crew went home at normal time, the other half stayed until it was up and running. So then if we want to go to streets, we've got ongoing potholes. We're waiting, if we go back to the Capitol, we're waiting on our blacktop machine to come in. It was due at any time, so we can go and get hot asphalt put in there versus the cold patch. They did a tremendous job in plowing this year. We got about 240 ton of salt. We actually had about 100 ton. Prior to that, we actually probably used about 180 ton of salt this year. So we still have a savings for next year, so we can still keep building that up. With the clearing of the right-of-way, it's ongoing. They're replacing street signs as fast as we can get them graffitied up. I mean, you replace one, the very next day, that same sign will be graffiti. We've asked the police department to keep a close eye, and the paint bandits are faster than anybody that I've ever seen. So we're in the process of getting them. If you see them, please let us know, because we don't always see them right away. With Vectren in town, we've cleaned about 4,000 feet of sewer line that's needed cleaned so they can run their cameras down, which is a lot of sewer line to get cleaned. Catch basins, they vacuumed out about 10 of them. We did remove the old broken catch basin that was in Subway's parking lot waiting to blacktop it. On top of, we removed the old tree that was taken out in the corner. We got cones sitting there. As soon as we get the blacktop machine in, we'll get it taken care of to where it doesn't look like it's got gravel there. Parks, we installed the weir at the glass farm. We removed some dirt that we had moved out of the parking lot to seal coat it last year. They worked on the baseball diamonds, softball diamonds. They've got the Little League started. Let's see, they did finish up the pool roof. They've put the small chemical room and the pool roof is done. So we should, Friday, we're actually gonna go up there and start opening the pool. Hopefully it's not gonna be that much. We'll be able to turn it on and have a great season. Building maintenance, it's ongoing. We did have a roof leak above the gym that has caused some water damage. We're actually working with the roofing company to see what they're gonna help pay for, since that was a manufacturer problem on their end. It's in the gym. If you look on the gym ceiling towards the stage on either end, plus the front side of the Bryan Center, the hallway drywall got damaged. So we're working with them to see what they'll cover. The basketball courts, real fast with all the rain and everything else, It has delayed that process. We do have the basketball goes up. I had ordered basketball backboards to go on it. We was not satisfied with the quality of them, so we sent them back, and we have 4 more on order. We have one that's about 5.5 foot, one that's 8 foot, and 2 that are 10 foot. So we have all sizes. And then parking lot, once we get the blacktop machine in, we'll get that back up and running, and maybe we'll have 26 more spots right there.
Which would have been nice tonight.
Yeah, all the computers have been installed, all the new computers are here, installed, up and running, and not had too many issues with the new system. Again, the GISing's ongoing. With the capital project, the heating and AC, they actually should be done this Friday. So we'll have new AC controls, all the new couplers for the boilers are on to where you can sectionalize stuff a lot better so you're not burning up and freezing in the next room. We did have all the fixtures in the Bryant Center that every one of them was leaking, so we had a company come in and change out all the fixtures. Gym floor was refinished. And storm study is, choice 1 is in the process of working on that. We did order and receive the new 2019 Bobcat. The hot box has been ordered. The electric and water truck's been ordered. The tornado siren has been completed on Dayton Street. The pool roof has been completed, and the baseball dugouts have been completed. So trying to check off the capital list as we go down.
Thank you.
Okay.
Johnny, do you want to say anything about unidirectional flushing and all of that, since you're gonna?
We just got the Ohio Rural Water just brought back our water map, and we have to review it and figure out what they've changed on it. But we're probably looking after street fair to actually go out there and start turning valves and start that. But we will let everybody know ahead of time. I will say we're going to send an email tomorrow, May 8th. We will have brown water in town. Probably Antiocha's got to do another fire flow test. At the same time, Miami Township's supposed to do another fire flow test, because if they can get 5 more PSI, they can lose about $200,000 pump off of their building. To go back to what Patty had mentioned earlier with Miller Pipeline in here doing sewer lines, cameras, they are finding major problems in the sewer. I know of 30 plus spots right now that are broke in town. So we've got 2 contractors right now that are bidding for the sewer line replacement or the sewer line installation. They have not got us a price yet, but these are 30 spots that we did not know about until they stuck the cameras in this year. And some of them are pretty significant. So we're working with them. We have identified where they are, so we know where to start if we got to start digging them up because of a backup or a blockage.
And I just also want to mention, though, that when the unidirectional flushing, to go back to that topic, when that does start, there will be very brown water in the village.
Correct.
Because we are going to be flushing out all of that stuff that's in the lines. So yes, we are making nice, clean water at the plant, but there's still the buildup that's in the lines. So I want to start preparing people to see that brown water, because it will be bad, because this is a different way of flushing the lines that puts a lot more force through. And it's important for you to know that that is coming and to help you prepare for that.
We are reversing the flow of the water. So if it was flowing this way for 50-something years, we're going to turn it and go the other way, and it will actually start taking the stuff off that's been put on there for 50 to 60 years.
Do we have budgeted for that sewer line replacement?
We have budgeted in the capital projects for up to, I think it was $90,000 for sewer relining this year.
Okay.
That would include Herman Street to Corey and it would include the section of town that they did last year for the gas line replacement.
But that's relining,
That's
not
relining.
replacement.
Correct.
So how are we going to cover that?
For the ones that we find that are
For these
broke,
30 spots?
we probably cannot even attack them this year because they will be in town for 9 months. So we now know that they're there.
Okay.
Now, I'm not telling you that they're caving in, but they're old clay, they're broke. When they clean it, we're getting clay back out of it. Some of them actually was probably broke when they installed a tap to a certain business or to a certain residence, and we're just now seeing it from the inside, and nobody can see it from the outside. So going forward for next year's capital budget, we will try to get as much into that as we can. I know if we did Xenia Avenue, we'd probably take care of about 15 of them if we relined Xenia Avenue. So we will highlight the most needed sections next year and try to get that in the budget as well.
Okay.
So, Johnny, I will admit that this report was probably the most enjoyable part of my packet. It was just chock full of interesting information. I think the pictures, I know, I guess it doesn't take much to please some people, but I mean, this was very, very informative, and I really, really enjoyed reading this part of the packet. So thank you for being so thorough.
Not a problem.
I agree, but I have a question.
Okay.
You know, for a while, there's been this talk about this need for another electrical circuit.
Yes.
So where are we with that?
We are in stalemate right now until we figure out where all the new development's going. We actually, Ben and myself went to Piqua to a mutual aid conference on Thursday, and we actually have talked to a couple people from Piqua that may be able to come down and help us assess our whole system. And we actually went to a technical conference the week before. We talked to a couple of people there that may be able to come down, and I said, why didn't you guys do the RFP? Well, we didn't see it. I'm like, well, it was out there. So we have some information. We got some great information over the last couple of weeks that they may be able to come down and help us assess the whole situation.
So do you think that's a 2020 project?
Depends on how fast the CBE goes and how fast some of the other developments that we know about are going to go.
So if another building goes into the CBE, for example, we heard this exciting news today, if that happens, we would need to move quickly.
I don't think one more large business like that would require the third circuit. I think if we build multiple houses close to there, we could split up the load to be able to put
So
more there.
that glass farm, the senior
The
building,
senior building, it's going to be on that same side of the circuit, so that's what I want to see, is because we're freeing up some stuff on this end of town, and we're putting it on the other end of town. So it may be that we have to build another line and maybe put in a larger conductor to be able to hold the load versus putting in a whole nother circuit. We're just trying to manage the best and get the best for the least we can.
absolutely. So I mean,
So-
we know that there's a tremendous amount of sensitivity in the community around the cost of living related to utilities. So I just really want to keep it front and center with council and also with community members, that these are the kinds of major projects that we have coming up,
Correct.
that we need to be aware of when we see the balances in the accounts that Colleen presents to us.
Correct. And we have so much out there that we don't know yet.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're doing the best. And if we can get other people's eyes in here to look at it and us give them some suggestions and then they give us some suggestions, we might be able to do more for little versus trying to spend something that we don't fully understand yet.
Thank you, Johnny.
Okay?
Thank you. Okay. Now is the time on the agenda when we ask for any citizen concerns. These are items that are not any other part of the agenda. Karen McKee?
Hi.
Hey.
How are you guys? Karen McKee. As most of you know, the McKee Association every year awards one of the community's most outstanding community members for their volunteerism. And historically, over the last 12-plus years, we have had a plaque downstairs in the lobby. It is no longer there, and I'm wondering if there is a possibility that the council could help us figure out where it is and whether or not it might be replaced. We would like to be able to add this year's honorees for that, so that's my request.
Johnny's nodding his head over there.
I know where it's at, and it's scheduled to go right back where it was.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Well, did you want to tell us who won this year?
Oh, I'm sorry.
we know, but,
Exactly, absolutely. Roger and Macy Reynolds. We literally could not have found a better example of individuals and collectively who have volunteered literally over 33 nonprofit organizations through their time here in Yellow Springs. So we are thrilled to have been able to honor Macy and Roger Reynolds.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thanks, Karen. Any other citizen concerns? Yes.
So it's not a concern that I have. First of all, I'm Jim Waukee.
Yep.
You may remember me from, I don't know, a few months ago. I came in and talked about the Village Impact Project that's being spearheaded by Donna Pitstick-Holler, who many of you know. Chris Chavers, Antioch student, although he's gone this summer doing an internship out in California. But they have started this Village Impact Project, and if you recall, what this project is about is trying to serve children in the community in the Yellow Springs Village who are in need of consistent, positive adult role modeling, is how I'll choose to say it. Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Miami Valley is the organization that I am affiliated with. I sit on the board of directors. We're partnering with Village Impact Project to try to focus on bringing that type of service to the children of Yellow Springs. So I was here a few months ago, talked about a coffee and learn event that we were having to try to generate some volunteerism here in the village. I wanted to report on that and talk about a couple things that are coming up. First off, happy news is that as of this moment, we have achieved 5 matches in the village. So we have 5 children who live here in Yellow Springs who now have been matched with adult mentors who are spending regular and consistent time with those children. We have 4 volunteer bigs, 4 more volunteer bigs who are ready to be matched, and 7 more children who are ready to be matched. Now, matches are more complicated than just saying child-adult match. So we really look deeply into the interests and the time commitments that they have and try to find truly good matches for these children because we want it to be a long-term relationship that takes them up and through high school. Again, a lot of it's about consistency with these children. So 4 more bigs ready to be matched, 7 littles ready to be matched. And additional good news, we have 5 bigs that are in process, so adult volunteers, and 3 more littles that are in process. So hopefully within the next month or so, they'll be hitting the ready to be matched list, and maybe some of these kids that are on the list currently will find their match, and they can start receiving this benefit as well. I wanted to mention to the people in the room, and of course people who may be watching, that we do need more volunteers. We've been doing this for a long time in the Dayton area with Big Brothers Big Sisters. There is always a continual need for more volunteers of adults. The the list will continue growing. So I want to ask the community that has supported this effort so far, anyone out there who feels that they may have a minimum of 3 hours a month that they would be willing to spend with a child in the community, again, in a consistent and positive way, we need more bigs. We especially need women volunteers. Amazingly, it's usually the reverse of that. But in this village so far, we've received many men volunteers, although with men, we do need demographic of younger men. So nothing against older men. I'm an older man myself, but we need more younger men. So if there are men in the 25 to 35 age range in Yellow Springs that are willing to spend that 3 hours a month to be a positive force for good in a child's life, we need you if you can volunteer. If you are thinking about volunteering to be a big, this is one of the best times of the year to do it. We currently are in the middle of a 30 Bigs in 30 Days campaign with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of the Miami Valley, so never a better time than now to help us meet that goal of signing up 30 more volunteers in the next 30 days. Lastly, maybe being a big is not something that works in your life. There are other ways that you can support this project within Yellow Springs. One great one that's coming up is that Saturday, June 22nd, we're having an event called Bright Nights. It happens in downtown Dayton at the Riverscape Pavilion. And what we do is we have 7 of the top chefs in Dayton come there. They serve small plates of their choosing, creations that they have brought for that event. Serve those small plates to all the attendees. There's beer, wine, cigar garden this year for those who like to smoke cigars, and of course live music. It's a wonderful time. So simply buying a ticket and coming to this event and having a great time with your spouse or significant other is a great way that you can support this organization. Mostly, what we need more than anything else for events like Bright Nights is we need business sponsorship. We have a few, but business sponsorship is way down this year. So a special call out to any business owners in Yellow Springs who might be willing to be a business sponsorship for this Bright Nights event. We have many different levels of sponsorship, from small amounts to much larger amounts. You can choose what fits for your business. You get advertising out of this. Your logo, your company name goes on all of the materials, all the advertising materials, the t-shirts, the pamphlets, and various things that are used at the event, as well as being up on the big screen during the event as well. So it's an opportunity for a business to get themselves known while helping such a good organization. Hopefully I'll be back, maybe in another 2 or 3 months, to announce that we've achieved an even larger amount of success within the village of Yellow Springs, and thank you very much for your time.
And Jim, if someone wants to volunteer, who do they contact?
So the best way, so you can get a hold of me, I live on 352 Dayton Street. You're welcome to come knock on the big blue house. Or Donna Pitstick Holler is very involved and passionate in this, if you know Donna. Or a really easy way is to go to BBBS, Big Brothers Big Sisters, BBBS GMV, Greater Miami Valley, so bbbsgmv.org. And you can do all of the various things that I've spoken about there. If you'd rather just come speak to somebody, you're welcome to track down me or Donna.
All right.
Also.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was a big brother in college, and it was amazing.
It is
So,
a wonderful thing
yeah.
for both parties.
Okay.
I do have one to add for Sergeant Watson, who had to leave. She just wanted to express on behalf of police department folk their appreciation for their ability to be involved in the village manager search process.
Good.
Thank you. Any other citizen concerns? All right, so then we're on to old business, and first up is the affordable, yes.
Can I make a suggestion? So that, I know that staff is here for some of these topics, and I assume that some of the citizens might be as well. So I was wondering if we could maybe move the YS Pride proposal, the discussion of the treasurer position, and the dig once up, so that staff could.
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
You could have mentioned it when we talked about the agenda.
Sorry,
That's okay.
didn't think about it
That's all right.
until
Okay,
afterward.
well, let's talk about the YS Pride proposal next, and I believe I'm leading that off. So in our packet, we had the request from the YS Pride team. I know Amy's here representing them. We also had some recommendations from Patty. So I know that all council members have read that. I guess I will just say briefly, I want to reiterate, to me, the importance of certain events to our village values. YS Pride is certainly one of those, as well as MLK Junior Day, and a few others that we support. Actually, we actively support Street Fair. So I'll be curious to hear where some things are at, but I do want to highlight in particular about the request related to the room rentals, that I think it's really important to note that with Equitas Health being here, doing the free HIV screening, and also Reach Out, our free clinic, is going to be also involved in helping with health assessment screenings. So I think that that to me is something that makes a lot of sense to support. The other thing I want to note is related to the request around banners, which certainly help us support how we are a welcoming community. That to me is an investment that will last for a long time, like with the kindness banners. And then I do want to highlight, because I'm not sure it's clear in the letter, that the speaker that is referenced is coming to talk about the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. So for those of you that are not aware of what happened 50 years ago, pretty tragic, but also really brought to light the need for change around LGBTQ issues. So I don't know if council members have questions or thoughts. And then I have a couple questions for Amy. But any questions or comments from council members first?
Well, I thought that waiving the fees for use of the space made sense, and I also thought maybe just bumping up the contribution so the total value was $1,000 was something that I would support.
Okay. Anything else? Amy, do you mind coming up to the mic? So one question I had is, are banners still in the mix? Is that something that, okay. And, okay, and have you guys, you've confirmed the cost of those and everything? And
Well, actually, I just checked my email today, and the Chamber has actually stepped up to want to be a $1,000 sponsor, and they said that they would also help provide money for banners for 2 large and 4 small pole banners.
Excellent.
So,
And Johnny, are we going to be able to put those someplace?
and that's the conversation that we need to have. I did talk to Karen a little bit. She was thinking that, I guess there's 4 large banner locations that she said it might be able to go up in where the large banners go, but not necessarily for the small banners. Before street fair or during street fair. So I got that far.
Okay.
I know I also got an email about south of town possibly being
The
open.
south end of town. So Johnny, the event is June 29th, and the
south end is open.
yeah, because you told me that Springs Fest doesn't use the south end.
Fest doesn't have it, and the kindness banner for the south end is not able to go back up.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was kind of waiting for this meeting to really figure out.
Okay, so it sounds like some coordination around that.
Absolutely.
Stonewall speaker, is that still?
Stonewall speaker has been confirmed
Excellent.
and is coming. Equitas Health has helped us with that. We have secured them. There is a cost, and I'll be honest, I don't have it right on me. I think it was around $450. We're double checking to make sure that they do not need an overnight stay. If they need an overnight stay, it might be a little bit more. They are charging us, I think, $300, and then travel because they are coming from somewhere a little bit further around Columbus. So that was the conversation, if they're gonna wanna stay here or drive home that night.
Cool. Anything else we should know update-wise from the original request?
Not from the original request that I
Okay.
can think of.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to also throw something else out, which is that we allocated for this year $25,000 for commissions. The HRC we've committed $9,000, the Arts and Culture Commission, $5,000. So there is some money that, I think normally would come from an HRC or an Arts and Culture Commission budget. And Patty had made the suggestion that rather than go 3 places, that this, kind of all be put together. So I guess I would like to consider maybe a somewhat larger than 1,000 sponsorship for the things that I'm hearing about. Maybe 1,500. And especially because the banners, I mean, it sounds like there's some support for banners, but that large banner, like the kindness banner, is not what the chamber is covering. And I mean, that is a kind of investment that I think I'd like that, to live with the village and be ongoing. Lisa, were you going to say
So
something?
just a clarifying question. So we can, in this, together decide to take some money from the commission budget towards this without having to go and deal with it in all the individual commissions?
I think so. I mean, it's, it kind of relates to me as we put together this, what Patty has called our incentive budget line.
Yeah.
I think we want to think about these more holistically moving forward. And so that's where I would make that recommendation. I mean, alternatively, it could be specifically going to the commissions.
I cannot imagine any member of the Art and Culture Commission not approving this budget, particularly for a banner. I think that's, something in the kind of domain or space that Art and Culture Commission has worked before. And, we're well into the year, so I would definitely support some of that budget going towards this banner request.
Okay.
So just a point of clarity, it's, Brian, what you're referring to is the non-allocated
Right.
remainder.
The 11,000.
So Arts has their money, HRC has their
So
money.
wouldn't-
This other money is not committed.
EC, 2,500.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that one.
So it's,
so-
we're down to about 9 then.
So it's 8,005. So it would be allocating some of that, and I would think of this as, this would be, a sponsorship from the village, which includes the Arts and Culture Commission and HRC.
Great.
And this is, firmly in the zone of our mission.
Yes. And, similarly with the, Human Relations Commission has sponsored speakers of this nature in the past. So, yeah, I'd love to see this happen. I think it's really exciting. And, next year, I think we'll have this on our radar sooner and we'll be able to budget for these things. So,
Save those banner dates a year in advance.
yes, that's right. Get it on the calendar.
Apparently that works.
Good. Yeah, it's always the last Saturday of June from now on.
Last Saturday of June.
So then I guess I will make a motion that the village sponsors the YS Pride event this year for $1,500.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, Amy.
So Amy, if you would get in touch with Colleen, you can email her. It's just C. Harris, and then the rest is the same as my email. And let her know how you need the check made out and all of that, and she can take care of that for you.
And so we don't have to fill out that form that we would normally send you?
Do you want the form for the file? So Brian would fill that form out as the president of council, since it's coming out of council
we need to
budget.
update that. I think the final update Judy and I have been working on, so people are able to check, like, which commission or the incentive fund. So yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Does that include the rental?
Yes.
So we're going to pay them and then they're going to pay us back?
That will be transferred to,
Yeah.
That'll just be moving to a different budget line.
The rentals we can move internally, and then the rest of that would be in a check to
So it won't be a check
Pride.
for 1,500?
Right.
No.
Okay.
It'll be a check for 1,500 minus whatever the rentals are.
Okay.
Well, in fact, I mean, and working together, if the banner's ordered, through the village, then there won't be tax. So, there are some advantages like that, so. Okay. All right. Okay, and then it sounded like we were also going to move up the discussion about the treasurer and investment consultant. Let me start with treasurer. So I think everyone knows that Rachel McKinley resigned, and she had been treasurer with the village for several years. Did a lot of good thinking around moving more money into the investment realm, which has paid off quite significantly. So we need to, under the charter, have someone in the treasurer position. One of the things from doing some homework, I know that Deborah Benning formerly was a clerk treasurer. And so I guess just to cut to the chase, I'm going to make a suggestion that we appoint Judy to be clerk treasurer. I think that her proximity to council, her ability to respond to the reporting needs that we have, and there will be some training that she will need to do, is part of that. So if we're amenable to that, then that would mean at the next meeting, Judy, I think we bring a resolution to appoint you as such. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, sound good? All right, good. So let's bring that to the next meeting. And, okay, then the second thing, there were quite a few documents. So I don't know if anyone's got any finance expertise about investments. And, yeah, I thought it was very, could be potentially educational.
$150,000, I saw that.
Yes, that's right. And this is not a new issue, obviously. We have talked about, for probably since 6 months ago, the idea that we might want to think about having some expertise in the investment realm. I think that that's one of the things that, with our former treasurer and probably in the past and what we're proposing moving forward, that was not an expertise. And I think somebody that understands municipal investing will not only make sure that we stay in compliance, but can also address changes in the market, because Star Ohio is great now, but interest rates do not stay the same forever, all right? And so we have to anticipate, and that was also part of what Brad Dragler referenced in his proposal, was that, the market is going to change, and I think that's reflected in some of the things that he might do. One of the things I want to clarify, because I don't think it is totally clear in the proposal, is that if we continue to invest most of our funds in Star Ohio, then he would be charging us $300 a month. So right now, and maybe this is a good time, Colleen, for you to come up. What is it, about 80% of our investments are in Star Ohio?
We have we have a total investment dollar amount of $6,932,000. Of that, between Star Ohio and Star Plus, that has the majority. I don't have the actual breakdown, but the difference is the certificates of deposits and the CD, the commercial paper is in Huntington Investments, and that's 546. So we have $546,000 in Huntington, the rest is in Star Ohio and Star Plus. And they are doing incredibly well right now.
Right.
And then if I can just add just a little note, his letter about maybe getting us to that 150,000 at the end of the year, I estimate, without moving anything at this point, if it continues in Star Ohio, we'll be at $178,000 interest for the whole year, no fees. But things do change. I
Right.
understand that. So I just wanted to kind of bring you up to where we are right now. We've had a really good run this past year, and they're doing really well.
And I think, I appreciated your email after looking at the packet, was that Brad's numbers were from a year ago, so he had not known, where our investments were currently. So I think in terms of if we were to bring on an investment consultant, we would be talking about, again, if we continue where we're at, we're investing a smaller amount of money in other concerns, And so that's where the minimum, which would, be $300 a month. If he was investing more actively because those interest rates were changing, that could go up to a maximum of,
5,000 a year.
5,000 a year. So we're talking about a range of 3,600 a year to 5,000 a year if we were to bring on an investment consultant. And then he would be looking at it month by month. Colleen, did you want to add any other?
No, I had a brief conversation with him, and he again stated that unless there was something that can do better than Star Ohio and Star Plus, that he would not even recommend us moving our money out of that into something that's locked up. That would incur fees. But last year, the opportunities were there, not as much into the Star Ohio, Star Plus, and they are now. So it's, from my conversation, I'm very anxious to meet with him. I don't know that my recommendation right now, I don't believe he can do anything for his fees that's going to do with that little bit that we have in Huntington left. He even didn't have any outsourcing for over and above what Star Ohio is doing right now. But again, things change. It's nice to have some consultant because it's more than my expertise, and I look forward to working with him. But right now, I think we're really good.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, go ahead.
Take questions. No, I saw the hand, I didn't know if you were wanting to take questions.
Oh, yeah, Lisa. If you don't mind coming up to the mic.
Sure. Right now, I have my community foundation hat on.
Yes.
Are you restricted in what you can invest in?
Yes.
To what?
Yeah, well, so we're still pushing this, trying to figure out if we can do impact, local kind of investing. Right now, we have not gotten a positive response, unfortunately.
Okay.
This again, though, is where, arguably, having someone that has this municipal expertise would be on top of how that environment is changing as well.
Right.
We'd love to do that, I will say.
Yeah. We're this year distributing on endowment funds that we hold, we're distributing 4%. And last year we distributed almost 5%. So
Wow.
just a,
We've asked
Yeah.
specifically about the community foundation.
okay.
Credit unions.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, so, but
Curious.
we would like for that to change. And, we continue to push and ask the questions.
Yep.
So,
Yep, okay.
yep,
All right.
thanks. So I think my thought is, I don't know that we need to make a decision about the investment consultant tonight, but I want to make sure that we really think seriously about this. I like Colleen's recommendation that the investment committee have a follow-up meeting just to kind of drill down on, what the future looks like and see, is that 150,000 number maybe now 250,000, depending on what we might be able to do. And so, but, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't forget about this and that we, potentially look at this as kind of a dual strategy.
The other thing is, Josue might be interested in this
Right.
as well because of his,
Right.
finance acumen. So this might be a nice thing to,
Right, I was going to suggest that if we're going to have it, and if potentially Brad would be there, because I know Colleen wants to speak with him, that perhaps Josue could dial in if we have it before he arrives. Perhaps he could call in and join us, just to get caught up to speed on that. Or we could schedule it for after he comes in and put it into the transition schedule.
Okay, I like that.
it doesn't seem like it's, urgent in terms of there is one account, I think, that we need to deal with, but.
Well, yeah, but we can just move that into Star Ohio when
Yeah,
it
to Star.
matures and just be done with it, because it's going to get 2.58, I think you said right now, Colleen? So,
Yeah, I think we just, we want to be proactive, and, you know, we haven't been in the past, and so, but I agree, it's not something we need to decide tonight. So,
Well, there's some flex in the transition schedule, so we can certainly put it in there, find out when Brad can come down and put it in there.
all right, great, thanks, Colleen.
Okay.
Okay.
And then dig once.
Oh, yeah, and dig once policy. So, Kevin, do you want to lead off, and
Yeah.
then we've got Johnny here?
Yeah, so really, I just, I mean, the phrase dig once existed before I came on council. So, you know, I had never read it, so that's why I wanted to see what it was. And it sounds like, Johnny, with the GIS information, you're effectively, you know, while Vectren is in some places, you're getting, you know, the tracking devices in place. You know, but, you know, we talked a few weeks, it was the village managers, technology advisory board, talked about dig once from a fiber infrastructure perspective. And, you know, with all the holes up and down Xenia Avenue right now, just wondered what was being done, if anything, with respect to our having an opportunity to add our, any technology infrastructure to those holes in the ground, as it were.
Well, let me give you an update on that. So, I'm all for it, except they're another utility, and we can't force them to put it in. But here's what I can tell you. What they had planned on doing, they couldn't do. And we showed them where there was an old conduit in the ground for an abandoned gas line. And because their bore machine could not bore down 68, they had to change their plan. And so they inserted a new plastic line down 68. So the holes that you see are just over top of existing utilities. So they're going to extend the mains from the west side of the road. Instead of having two gas mains down Xenia Avenue, there will only be the one, and they're going to extend the mains across the road, or the laterals, the services across the road. So you won't see no big open ditches. To go back to the dig once policy, if we was doing new construction, we throw it in there. We did it at the CBE. The village, we just bored under the road over there, it was ours. We made sure that there's 3 conduits in there. They're 2-inch conduits. We need one for power, the others for other people. I even asked for the simplest thing from Vectren, which was reimbursement for labor that we have on this locating for the hundreds of dollars of spray paint that we have spent. And I'm not talking 200, I'm probably in the neighborhood of $500 in marking paint for this project. And for the company that we had to have bring in for Capital Electric to locate our traffic signals that they maintain for us when we need it. And the answer is they don't reimburse. So we did a due diligence on asking them for reimbursement just on stuff that we need. And the answer is no. To ask them to bore in a new line, which they can't do because they can't bore it in. It's solid rock. They hit 12 inches up there by the hotel and they couldn't go no further. So if that was an open cut ditch, we could still possibly have the same problem because they would have to lay their pipe, they would backfill it some, and then we'd have to bring in another company to install it. The problem is getting it from that ditch to every business. And all those are fed from the rear of the property now. So to bring fiber to the front of the building, then you would have to run it all the way through the building, and then you'd have all the exposed conduit on the front side of the buildings.
Okay. So obviously, as you know, then, and I appreciate the update, because my concern, and the other folks in the group, concern came from Plan A.
Correct.
Before.
And Plan A went by real fast.
Yeah. So, so my other concern then would be, you know, in the future, is what we have strong enough? Is it enforceable? I mean, if we really want to be able to take advantage of
I
opportunities.
think it's only enforceable if it's a village dig. You know, Time Warner, we cannot make them install stuff for us. It's a village ordinance, it's a village dig once policy, to where we say, if we're doing a development or we're doing a road, that we're gonna think about it. So you gotta look at it too, is let's say the fiber is there and it's a dig once policy, and then we say, oh, wait a minute, we may want water lines, sewer lines, and everything else. We have to get all that in that same ditch.
Yeah, and we do ask. We do ask the contractors when they're in here. It's just that we can't force them to allow us to throw a conduit in there.
We have 4 crossovers on Springsway Boulevard. And we actually had to make them come back because they forgot. So I was like, wait a minute, you didn't put these in. So they come back before they blacktop and put them in there.
Okay.
Because it was actually on the drawing, and we have my kinds draw it in there. The dig once policy actually was inundated prior to the dig once policy because when we was looking at the solar field, Ben and I looked forward to how you get an electric from one side of the field to the other side of the field because it's supposed to be underground. So we actually installed 2 6-inch pipes completely under the solar field from one end to another with a pool box in the middle. So to go back in history a little bit with me and a couple other guys, man, if you can throw it in the first time, it's cheaper
Oh, yeah.
than to go back and dig it up and do it again.
Right.
Right. And just as a side note, as soon as the Vectren thing, was talked about, we immediately talked about the dig once policy. Because this was something that, I really appreciated SpringsNet bringing up. And so, it's something that, now he stops me before I even get it out of my mouth. So, but that being said, I think the other question you're asking is, should this become a resolution to be even more present? I mean, there's no reason that we could not do that, just to make it, even more clear. I mean, I think it is a policy that the team is using. But, I'd be comfortable with, also passing it as a resolution just to, make it really clear that it's out there, if that's what you're getting at.
Yes, yeah, anything, like I said, to codify it. And so, however we're asking, so if it's more of a formal presentation, when they're going through the zoning process and of getting permits and whatnot, they see it, they weigh it out, and they can tell us, take a flying leap or we agree.
So how about planning commission get involved with this, though? It seems like it's about planning, isn't it, or?
Well, it is about planning, but at the same time, planning commission hears private projects, and they can't, any more than any of the rest of us, make someone put something in a private
So, I mean, a
dig.
resolution is not going to change that.
But my question is, Kevin, you used the word codified.
Yep, I know it.
And no, I'm asking.
I know I did.
I'm pointing it out for a reason.
Right.
Because resolutions are not codified.
Understood.
Ordinances are codified. So you could make it an ordinance, but it would be an ordinance that only applies to the crew that's already doing it.
And let me just say, we had a meeting today, possible developments in the near future. And I also brought up to them, and I don't know if you're aware, but Ameritech does not go in and drop lines anymore unless you actually pay for that service, because a lot of people don't have landlines anymore, so they're not doing that as Platt's having telephones everywhere. They're going with these 5G towers and all the other things. So for us to add that infrastructure cost to somebody that's already building a development, I don't know that we can force them to do the building their own development and then selling the lots.
Right, right,
We can highly suggest it,
right.
and we do, believe me, because I used to do this prior to this. all the plats are all up and nice and pretty, and then all of a sudden we come back in and put streetlights up. Well, where's all the conduits? Oh, you gotta dig all the front yards up again. And it's totally off the hook.
And part of the problem, Kevin, is that, let's just say that, that contractors in there, they're putting the water line in, and that contractor isn't the contractor that's gonna sell the fiber to the person who's gonna live in that house. And so the water contractor would have no reason to let the fiber contractor run in his.
Well, typically dig once policies are for when you do streets and sidewalks.
Right.
I mean, that's, that's what we're mostly talking about, so, okay, so,
So if we're in a good position to, make a formal request or have the expectation of any vendors that come in, that's really what I'm looking for. And I do understand, when it's a government dig, it's our dig, we do, as long as we do what we say we're gonna do.
You can go right out front yard and see it.
Yeah, all right. So if we feel like, doing more is not necessary, I just want to make sure again that we're in the best place to do what we can, and that it is to the degree that we can enforce it, set the expectation and anticipate that folks will go along with it. So, just wanted to have a discussion.
all right.
And again, the update on the change in plans was critical. Thank you for that.
And as they go, they're changing the plans because, Limestone's named Limestone for a reason, and that's where they started. So,
Okay,
All right.
thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Johnny.
Okay. All right, we're gonna hop back up to affordable housing discussion.
At the last meeting, I brought some proposals in regard to partnering with Home Inc. that were recommended by Community Land Trust Authority.
Hey, Marion, before you get started.
No, I'm not, I think this is a general discussion. It's not a specific Home Inc. discussion, so I don't see why you shouldn't be here.
Well,
I'm
also would
changing the
respectfully say that if Kenetta wishes to recuse at any point, anytime there is a discussion about affordable housing, she absolutely has the right to do that.
Yes, I do not see, what I want to talk about, does not directly impact Home Inc. moving forward.
Okay.
So, as I said, I brought this proposal forward, and we had for me, awkward discussion. So I decided not to pursue that at this meeting. I want to step back and regroup, I guess. So I'd like to just take about 5 minutes to sort of introduce what I'd like to talk about, and then open it up for the rest of the council. So just stepping back, where I think we are in terms of a housing plan are that we have agreed upon a vision, we've agreed upon goals. What we don't have in the housing plan is the narrative that describes in more detail, the kind of housing that we're looking for and how we will go about it, in other words, the strategies. And the other main parts of the housing plan particularly would be the glass farm and how we're going to move forward on that, and what I would be proposing of an inclusionary zoning section that would be voluntary inclusionary zoning in which the village would offer various kind of incentives for private developers to include affordable housing. And then another part of the housing plan would be talking about how we would want to collaborate with for-profit developers as well as nonprofit developers to have housing be the kind of housing we want and need in the village and where we might want to have it. So there are pieces of all of those things that have been talked about, both with the Housing Advisory Board, and I've had discussions with some different people, but that whole narrative piece has not been done yet. So the main thing I wanted to talk to have happen at our meeting today is I want to give a little bit of background about affordable housing in the village, and then I wanted to open it up to council to get suggestions on direction on how you would like us to move forward, not just with affordable housing, but whatever we want to talk about right now in terms of the housing plan moving forward. And another thing that we had talked about briefly was whether we wanted the Housing Advisory Board to continue as a Housing Advisory Board or morph into a commission of some sort. So the reason why we want to spend the time that we have been spending on affordable housing is because the only way affordable housing will happen in the village is for the village government to participate in some way. Market rate housing, we can certainly encourage, but the village government doesn't have to take a lot of active steps to have that happen. Affordable housing will not happen in this village without the village government taking steps to see that it happens. So what I wanted to do was just give a little bit of background about affordable housing in the village and then step back and see what other council members have to say. In 1961, Arthur Morgan, most people know who Arthur Morgan was, established the Yellow Springs Metropolitan Housing Authority. It was established at his suggestion to build senior housing in what is now the Lawson Place. And so those first units of, the oldest units of housing at Lawson Place were developed out of that effort, started by Arthur Morgan, and what I'm going to call the three matriarchs of affordable housing. The first one was Donna Denman, who took over the Yellow Springs Metropolitan Housing Authority, and then in the early 1970s, that expanded to become the Greene County Metropolitan Housing Authority. So one could say that affordable housing in Greene County started in Yellow Springs, and it started in no small part because of Arthur Morgan. Then 20 plus years later, in the mid-1900s, after several citizens in town helped to start the Tecumseh Land Trust, two of those citizens, Ilsa Tebbetts and Sue Clauser, both of who were involved in starting Tecumseh Land Trust, said, my understanding of the story is they were riding in a car and said, now we need to work on affordable housing. They saw that if we were going to, at that time, create what was going to be a green belt around Yellow Springs, that it would have the impact that we have seen it have. And so they came to the village council at that time in 1995 and suggested that council start working on affordable housing. Council appointed an affordable housing task force in that year. That task force looked at various places in the village in which to build affordable housing and eventually settled on the middle section of the Glass Farm. At the same time, several of the council members established a shell of a nonprofit organization that became Home Inc. So Home Inc. was initially established by council members. In 1998, that shell became a reality when council appointed 5 members to the board of what became Home Inc. So I thought it was important that council and the community understand that council has started Home Inc., essentially. What happened, though, was that because of various tensions on council and in the community, there was resistance both to that project, that first project on the Glass Farm, as well as resistance to the second project that was proposed. Backing up just a little bit more, one of the threads that also is related to Arthur Morgan is the idea of how we use land. And I'm not saying that Arthur Morgan started this idea. It's an old idea. We think of land as something that you buy and you sell as a commodity, but we know that there are cultures that don't believe in the ownership of land. Well, both Tecumseh Land Trust and Home Inc. come out of a long tradition of that, the philosophy that land is more than a commodity to be bought and sold, and that the community or a region has an interest in having land be available for community purposes. So in the case of Tecumseh Land Trust, it's land that's being set aside for farming or for natural areas. In the case of Home Inc., it's land that's being set aside for housing, affordable housing. But at the basis of both of those organizations is the idea that land should be something that can be pulled out of the capitalist market and saved for community purposes. While farmland conservation for Yellow Springs has been pretty uncontroversial, affordable housing has been quite controversial, in part because probably it's land use in the village, whatever it is controversial, whereas farmland is out there, or affordable housing is here. But I just wanted to give that background so that you might have some, I know I acted defensively at the last council meeting, but given, that I've been trying to work on this for that period of time, I understand that I sometimes can get emotional and not be very effective. So I'm going to step back, and what I'd like for council to talk about or say, what are the kind of things what is the kind of direction that you think should be coming from council? What are the questions that need to be asked? What are the things that you would like to see happening to move both the housing plan forward, but in part, the glass farm, affordable housing, and then if we think that Canetta needs to recuse herself, I guess that can happen.
Are we going to talk about a direct relationship with Home Inc. or Home Inc.'s direct relationship in a project?
I don't know. I'm opening it up to council members.
I'm not hearing that that's what Marianne wants. I think she's asking a more broader question about the direction and types of things we want to see done. So I will ask a question. Do we know we obviously Glass Farm is the largest piece of dirt that we own, piece of property that we own. So that gets a lot of airplay. But do we have an inventory of every infill piece of property and a sense of where the owner or owners of those properties are thinking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I would qualify it, but yes.
Okay.
Karen Wintrow and I took a blow-up map of the village, identified all of the vacant properties, the property owners. We have a fair sense of what's being planned, what might be planned on those properties. And in terms of the village itself, of course, we know the properties that the village owns. And there might be a couple opportunities. There's the Cemetery Street property that we own, which could have maybe several lots. And I always get, which is the Hilda Ron and which is the Beatty Hughes Park?
Hilda Ron is the park where the train station is, and Beatty Hughes is on Corey Street.
Okay.
But there is a proposal for Beatty Hughes to become parking.
Okay, so the Beatty Hughes property would probably be the only other property, I think, that the village owns where there could be
Actually, potentially parts of Bill Duncan. Jerry Sims actually proposed that. That's why I'm bringing that up.
potentially.
So, and
Trying
is
to
this a,
Answer your question.
is this a map that
Pretty
we're
much.
gonna see?
We can bring it.
I think that'd be good.
Although, I don't know that individual property owners want to have their property identified and with our thoughts publicly.
Right.
Of what might happen there. So I'm not sure that, I'm not sure
Marianne,
that's a great
I
idea.
think that the conversation that we had last week, we had permission to share to a certain extent,
Yeah.
if you would like to share that.
You mean about the glass farm?
No, about the adjacent.
Oh. Well, when you start talking about real estate development, it gets, how much you want to say and how much you don't want to say is sort of, so there is the potential for the property that's adjacent to the glass farm, which is about the same size as the property available for housing on the glass farm, to have some collaboration going on between those two properties. I'm not real comfortable talking about more than that, really.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, and I didn't know how far down the road any of those discussions had gone.
My sense is, I've had just a little bit of other conversations with property owners, is that there is an interest in the village in having housing, that the village needs, and to the degree that the village government can assist and collaborate, there's that interest there from the private.
Well, I think the other thing is, we didn't talk about we know about Antioch College and their, potential ideas, but we didn't talk about the Yellow Spring schools, and my understanding is
Well,
that
that's-
it is, public knowledge that they are doing a property assessment. So I think what I hear Kevin getting at is that, if we are gonna talk about sort of this balance, that I guess we have to figure out what that sweet spot is, what we can look at and kind of thinking about what these strategies are gonna look like. I think that's separate from the narrative that you're talking about, which I wholeheartedly think we should do, what we wanna see. But I guess at some point, somebody's gotta be looking at, what all could potentially happen and how that all works together. So, at some point, I do want to say something that's related to Home Inc., and so I think Kanetta will want to recuse herself then, but I don't know if there are other general comments before that.
Just in terms of another piece of property, I don't know what you call it, but it's on the south end of town.
Ken Strewing's property?
I think that's,
Yeah.
Ken Strewing owns property in the village and adjacent to the village.
All right.
And I don't know if anyone's been in touch with him.
Not recently, he periodically makes contact with Denise, but I asked her the other day, and she has not heard from him recently.
yeah.
I had started reaching out, and then I wasn't sure whether legally that was a good thing for me to do, so I pulled back, and I actually was going to talk more with you to get your sense of that. But as much as village government can be, or representatives can be reaching out and talking with private landowners to coordinate things and collaborate, I think we should be doing that.
Right.
I guess I do want to also come back to, you mentioned about the Housing Advisory Board becoming a more formal commission. I think that's really important to do. And I would definitely, I had suggested that it could be sort of under the umbrella of Planning Commission as one possibility. I know that Patty's made that recommendation. And I think it would definitely add more openness and transparency. And it would also then allow for that group to go through the process, you know, that we see where, you know, we announce those members at council table. I mean, we kind of have done that with the Housing Advisory Board, but I think that would be a great thing to do sooner rather than later.
As a full commission?
Yeah, or at least, you know, I mean, I think it makes sense for it to be housed under Planning Commission.
Okay.
So that there's that kind of association. And then making sure that we have the expertise and diversity in that group that we want, which I think you've done a really good job of outreach there. And I know you guys have done a lot of really good work. So, Lisa, did you?
I have no general comments.
Okay. So Kenetta, maybe you might want to recuse yourself because I want to mention a few things about our prior discussion. So.
Yep. I'll go ahead and recuse. I just had a few thoughts about the narrative and when we're talking about the kinds of housing and strategies moving forward. I think a really central thing that we should be thinking about is who we look to serve with the housing. I think that starting with people first is going to be really important, especially when we are looking at who do we want to draw into our community, who do we want to live in the village. And I know with affordable housing, that's a big piece of it, but in housing in general, I think that if we want to have a more diverse village, then we have to have more diverse housing types. And I think that that's something that we'll definitely want to start with when we're thinking about the narrative about what the housing will look like. I think that we need to really look at what's realistic for not just today, but the next 10 years, the next 15, 20 years, and so forth, especially since the world of housing is really changing with upcoming generations and even current generations that are aging out of housing and stuff. So I think that's something that we definitely need to look at.
Great.
I will go ahead and recuse myself.
So I just wanted to, because I feel a little bit differently about the last conversation we have, and I don't want to totally back away from that completely, because I thought some of the things that were mentioned were on the right track. And I guess what it really made me think about was, and I think this is kind of the built into your story, is what the community land trust model means, what it is. And I really like the historical background that you've presented. So I do want to make sure that we make some space before too long for some education around that. And so for us that I think are, you know, also passionate and concerned about this, but don't have the depth that Marianne, you and others have, I want to make sure that it becomes part of our, I guess, next piece. And so the only thing I thought was that a couple things I'm not sure we were ready to process without some of that education and background. And I thought Lisa asked some really good questions. And they might have even been rhetorical, but questions that I think that the community needs to understand. And so I do want to make sure that we have Home Inc. coming in to help us understand the full scope of what they do, how they add value, and I do still think some kind of formalization of the relationship, whatever we call that, an MOU, however that's structured, should be contemplated in all of this. I mean, I think it's part of the overall scope of partners that we're going to need to move forward. And I also think that, you know, this is again one of the reasons why we're excited about Josue and his background in that regard. So maybe those things kind of intersect around the same time. But I didn't want to, I guess, leave this without saying that I thought a lot of what was brought up was really important, and I want to, I guess, in the same way that we have such a great relationship with Tecumseh Land Trust, and we also do with Home Inc., we need to address this public perception, and I think there are some things that are just are misunderstood. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to gather in questions that community members have and address them. I also met with Emily Seibel, and she did offer to come and, address council. But I do think it'd be great to gather questions and not just our questions. I mean, I know I'm just intentionally trying to ask people, what do they know about the land trust model? And, I mean, forget about even saying Home Inc. Like, what do you know about the land trust model and what the land trust does for our community? For some reason, and I don't understand why, the land trust, as in farming land trust, doesn't elicit the same reaction as land trust as in affordable housing land trust. I'm not sure why, but I think that I know that I'm trying to increase my literacy so that I personally have a perspective, as well as that I can reflect the questions from community members. And when I think specifically about Glass Farm, though, I mean, to me, there's this like big conversation, but then when I think specifically about Glass Farm, to me, the word that keeps being so important, and you said it, Marianne, is collaboration. Because the village, I mean, we're not a developer, right? And unless we find a way to identify a set, I think it's gonna take a set of collaboration partners, perhaps hubbed or managed through a primary partner, it's not going to happen because it's so complicated. And particularly if we're doing voluntary inclusionary, it's, it's complicated to navigate. And this council, or even a committee or a commission, can't do it without help. One of the things that I mentioned at the last meeting, I was recalling, not very well, I wasn't recalling it very well, but I still recall that there was some person that came to the council meeting, that said, hey, the local Yellow Springs builders, we'd like to get in on this too. Well, right. But that doesn't mean that can't happen in addition to collaboration with Home Inc. and other partners that are identified. I think this is a big opportunity. I think there's going to be a lot of building. I think it's going to mean jobs, and so I'm thinking of that layer as much as, deciding what percentages affordable land trust versus some other price point. So I think it's an exciting conversation, and I think we need to just keep having it. And Marianne, let me publicly apologize if you felt broadsided, because I was just like reacting, and my head started like zooming ahead and, just asking questions. So I didn't mean to do that.
The other thing I want to make sure that we include in this conversation, because I don't think we've said it yet, is the permanent affordable housing piece.
Right,
And I think
that's the real value of the land trust.
Right.
Right.
Just FYI, we did have a meeting with Home Inc., St. Mary's Development Corporation, and the Miller Valentine group that has broken off, that's the for-profit branch, used to be part of Miller Valentine. They've broken off and they do affordable housing. They do tax credit housing with local nonprofits. So they work with St. Mary's, or they could work with St. Mary's and Home Inc. But we had a meeting to look at what could be possible from their point of view on the Glass Farm in terms of the kind of affordable housing products, strategies. And that was a good.
It was a very good conversation. I was very impressed with them. And I think that, that it's important that them or someone like them with their knowledge and expertise be involved in this process, because I think that I agree that unless we have someone with that knowledge and expertise, it's not going to get done the right way. I think that we just have to be careful about the context that we make, and I heard a suggestion about a master planner for the Glass Farm, and I would strongly recommend that council do that sooner rather than later and let that RFP out, because I think that that is the first major step. Now, that said, that master planner's gonna wanna know what you wanna do with Glass Farm, and that's part, maybe that's part of the RFP that you put out, is the community engagement, the discussions with council, those things, to find out what goes on there, what goes into the master plan.
So, so there is a property adjacent to Glass Farm,
Yeah.
and there is some interest in doing something on that property.
Yes.
And all I would submit is that, you know, all of this planning and discussion needs to be done in more of a global, regional way. And
What do you mean?
Well-
Global and regional?
those two pieces of property, there's an
Oh,
artificial.
Holistic.
Okay.
Right, holistic.
Yes, there have
Right.
been discussions
Right.
regarding that. It's just that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I don't think it's time to be public.
Well,
Yeah.
you're right,
But
I'm
there
just, as long
have
as.
been
long as you're
discussions
right.
about how can we coordinate, you know, infrastructure, roads, neighborhoods,
Okay,
even swap property, maybe?
there we go. Okay, so as long as those discussions are happening, because again, I know we
Yes.
can only publicly talk about or submit doing things on property that we own. You know,
Right.
but you dig a hole in another adjacent property and you have effects in the property that you own. So as long as those discussions are being had in earnest, that's a good thing.
But I do think that Josue will have a lot to offer this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ready?
all right, so should we grab Canetta?
Okay.
Maybe not grab.
Something like that.
I don't this is a good transition to our next topic, Liquid Today.
Oh, yes, it is. It's Nursing Week. Thank you.
So yes, as we transition into our next topic, the Yellow Springs Health Assessment, I wanted to recognize that it's National Nurses Day and appreciate our nurse councilwoman at the table. And Lisa, if you want to pick this one up.
Yes, I want to talk about the Village of Yellow Springs Health Assessment. I'm so excited about this. You know, a couple of meetings ago, Dr. Sharon Sherlock and Dr. Cindy Seek came and talked about the Reach Out Clinic and the Cultural Health Robert Woods Johnson grant respectively. And now, as of last week, the Village of Yellow Springs Health Assessment has officially kicked off. There's a team of graduate students from UD and Wright State, as well as some nurse practitioner students from Cedarville who have the pediatric expertise that are involved in what will be a 3-month project. One of the things that I'm most excited about is that, you know, when you look at national health data, it's almost like one of those round up the usual suspects thing as far as the diagnoses of concern. And even if you look at a state level or even at a county level, just because of the nature of statistics, it's interesting and actionable at a certain level, but it washes out the unique health needs of a community, and a community our size where we have the opportunity to drill down and understand specific health issues in our community that we as our village government can address at a programmatic level, that our fire chief can address, that our police can get involved with, that the senior center can get involved with, just depending on the actual findings. So in the document, there's a list of the community stakeholders. I was really proud of putting together this group that represents the schools, 2 different fellow nurses who work in maternal child health, Melissa Heston, who's an Encore Miller Fellow, focused on wellness. Florence Randolph, of course, Dr. Seek, the Greene County Public Health, Ashley Stevely, Kat Walter, who's the Encore Miller Fellow from Community Solutions, and also works for Community Solutions, who's bringing in this particular focus on food insecurity, which we know is critical. Pan Reich, Antioch College nurse, and Karen Wolford from the Senior Center. Sharon and I have met with Chief Altman because Dr. Sherlock's done extensive work with community paramedic services, and he's going to be collaborating to provide multi-year run data that will really help us to understand the issues in our community. So what's happening right now is the project team is doing additional data mining from county sources. They're going to be doing interviews with community members. The people who are the stakeholders certainly will be interviewed, and others they recommend. If you're interested in talking to our team about anything that you're focused on, I'd love to hear from you. Additionally, there's participation, as Brian mentioned earlier, Reach Out is involved with Pride and the continued work at the Reach Out Clinic. In this packet, I've included the handout that Dr. Sherlock's team provided at our kickoff. So everything that's there is publicly available data, primarily from census. So there's not a lot of surprises there, but I included it just in case you might be interested. In our meeting, we also spoke specifically about concerns that we address some issues of gender identity and inclusion, and also around race issues, access to healthcare, access to wellness. And, those are two topics, both around gender identity and race, where we know that there's tremendous disparities nationally. So we want to be certain that we understand what's going on within our Yellow Springs community. This, for me, is, of all the things that I've done since I've been on council, the action that I think has the most potential to really make a difference for community members as individuals, based on what I've seen other communities do. Because there's a lot of gaps in service, whether you're insured or uninsured, and regardless of your coverage or your types of needs, we are going to find, I'm certain, that there are people who are having to be readmitted to the hospital over weekends just because they don't have access to home care on the weekend, or because they're elderly people who are falling and falling and falling, and that we don't understand, like, how can we get involved with getting, like, safety bars attached, getting grants to build ramps. These are all things that can happen for our community through grants, and it's not going to be difficult. We're going to be able to make a big difference really quickly with this. I'm confident. So I'm glad to give this update, and I'll just keep bringing updates at least monthly as this unfolds, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. I saw some things that maybe the Environmental Commission might want to weigh in on, for example, pesticides.
Cool, yeah, yeah.
So I want to send this to EC.
Okay, and we can send me a contact, and then Cindy and her team will want to talk to them. Perfect, thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, it was a really diverse, I mean, I was really impressed with who you pulled together. So, great meeting.
Well, it's amazing. Yellow Springs is amazing, because if you want to work on something about a finance thing, you can pull a group together. Health assessment, you can pull a group together. I mean, it's really inspirational to see the kind of talent and interest and engagement that is so there for us. So, pretty exciting.
Yeah, great job.
Thanks.
So I think utility roundup update is also yours?
Yeah, so in here, it doesn't have a name or footer on it, but there's a a report from Connor Jameson, who's our Utility Roundup Program Coordinator. She's a Miller Fellow. She is a ball of energy, trying to help us to create strategies and outreach to improve the success of the Roundup, because as you know, we do need more people to round up, and we do need to fund it at a heavier level to be able to meet the anticipated needs of the community. I'm really pleased to share that she also does some work at WISO, and as a result, we're going to get radio spots about the utility roundup. So hopefully that will increase visibility. All along, we've talked about there being 2 phases to the Roundup program. The first phase, which is actually creating the funding for the Roundup, is important, but I agree with comments that have been made even at this chamber that it's somewhat a Band-Aid because it doesn't get at the underlying, some of the underlying challenges about how people use utilities. Do they know how to winterize their windows? I mean, what actions can individuals take? What actions should landlord take? What actions can the village take, or other groups that are working on this sort of issue to help people to reduce their energy usage? So we're just now starting to move into that phase, while at the same time trying to get that fund increased for the actual Roundup. In the packet, there's a statement of revenue expense for the Roundup. You know, we're down to about $5,000. So, you know, this summer may or may not be low, because we know that there's a population of lower income people who live in Yellow Springs who, you know, they're all electric and it's air conditioner season. So I'm concerned, but I believe that the village will, if we just keep making it easier and if we just keep telling people about it, we're going to have a booth at the street fair. And we do know that, I mean, I know some locals stay away, but others attend. So we're going to be there staffing that to try to get more people to sign up and to educate about Roundup. Sorry, I'm still kind of sick, so I sound kind of gurky. That's a nursing term, gurky. I can use nursing terms this week.
Yes.
Patty, am I forgetting anything about the Roundup?
No, just another reminder about Thirsty Thursday.
Oh, yeah? I know, you gave me such a good segue for that.
I did, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, and Connor's primarily responsible for the Thirsty Thursday and a lot of stuff that's been happening with that. She's really been, like Lisa said, a ball of energy. Just look-
Well, I'm definitely impressed. I would like to say, let's make sure, because I love this report, let's make sure in the future it does have a name and a title and some kind of identification and date.
What Thursday is it?
May 16th.
There's 3, yeah.
Next Thursday.
Yep. Also, there were 2 things that I thought about. One is, I love that goal around the take rate. Can we get updates on what the take rate is right now?
We can, the last we checked, it was at 199 households.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should start, I'd like to see, I think we've got a lot of energy behind this, so a monthly or every other month report, maybe, track,
could have
chart out the
neighborhoods.
take rate.
Neighborhoods like compete or
Ooh,
something.
challenge.
Well, we actually had that idea around the block parties.
Right.
And when we kind of tested it with the block party people, they didn't like the idea because they felt like the block party was just their time to have fun.
Right.
They didn't want us there trying to recruit them.
Wow. What block party people were you talking to?
There's point people for the different block parties.
Tim Baum, who is on HRC and is the point person for the block parties on HRC, also serves on the Utility Roundup Committee. And so he sent out an email to the folks that he had contact with through the different neighborhood block parties. And the general response was, this is a time to enjoy with your neighbors and not a time to talk about utility roundup, or there have been other programs that have been approached at block parties that also have not, people just tend to want to socialize at those as opposed to talk about the programs, so.
The other thing I thought about, I appreciated the PBL project around energy efficiency. It also occurred to me, so of course I'm disappointed that we're not getting volunteers for the canvassing, but I think we should keep on thinking about ways to promote the program, and I thought a really cool PBL project could be having the kids create some kind of marketing material. So like a little card or something like that. I think that, when they've done some of their housing projects and other things, it's just been so powerful. So like the way that they would present it could be really cool. I'm not saying they have to go out and, do the canvassing, but like coming up with some kind of rack card or something that, had their imprint on it.
Yeah.
So I love this, and so I guess I just want to make sure that we keep pushing to reach that goal.
Well, we did set an audacious goal
What?
of 50% household participation at our last meeting. And, I mean, that is pretty go big or go home.
I think that's
But we
reasonable.
believe we need to do that if it's going to work.
So
I
how
mean,
about-
Pennies.
Yeah, I think a lot
pennies.
of it is just, people just don't know. I mean, as you know, there are some communities that they just they put people on it, and you just say
I
if you
know,
don't want to
well.
be on it.
We keep bringing that up, Stokes and I keep bringing that up, but there's just a lot of concern that people will, even if it's only pennies, consider it unacceptable for the government to add to their utility bill, given that it's such a hot issue. So we keep thinking about that and then not going there.
I wonder, also a lot of times it's about how easy you make it,
It's
so
not
like-
easy.
So I'm wondering, like, could we have a button on the homepage of the website that just you click and you're in? I wonder how
yeah.
often we post it on Facebook, like, are we doing it at least once a
Yeah,
month?
Yeah,
I mean-
Connor and I are working on the Facebook and website notices, and God love Megan again for putting all of our stuff in the paper, but.
But a lot of the problem is, it's my favorite people to talk about today, the auditors.
Well,
A lot of the challenge
And
to
that's a good
enrollment
segue.
has to do with the auditors.
good segue into your last topic,
Oh, my
isn't it?
last topic, the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. So, this is like watching a tennis, game. So you may recall that we were focused on having the revolving loan fund administered by the Community Development Corporation for a number of reasons. I won't go into all of those. So then the Community Development Corporation spent time and energy working on that, only to find a memo from legal counsel saying that there were restrictions under the regulatory language of DCICs that would only allow us to loan money to individuals who had already unsuccessfully attempted and failed to get a loan from a conventional resource. So we didn't want to do that. In the meantime, for like years, I think others have been working on this before I got involved on council and also at the credit union. So then it came back to economic sustainability, where a significant amount of work was put into a whole packet of materials, a bunch of learning about how that might work, only to find out additional legal counsel and from the auditors that they do not approve of us putting those funds in a credit union. So we're blocked there. So it's,
Did you get a definite response? I
Yeah.
know it was a preferred, they preferred.
no, we now have legal counsel saying we can't do it.
Okay.
So now it's back to the Yellow Springs Community Development Corporation. We're now looking for a more definitive legal counsel advice to confirm that we can transfer those funds to the Community Development Corporation. And then at that point, it's no longer municipal funds. And at that point, then we can use the credit union. So it has been frustrating. Hours and hours of work have been invested to date. And the most important thing for me now is that we're able to move forward with accurate advice that we receive in a timely manner. So in the meantime, as a sidebar, again, I want to thank Lisa Abel for convening the Yellow Springs Community Development Corporation, and we're moving forward with the 501c3 application. And we should have that done within a matter of months. And once it goes, once it's filed, we don't control how long that will take. So if something else changes, I'll keep you posted, but for now, it looks like the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund is back in the Yellow Springs Community Development Corporation.
And just regarding the 501c3 piece, there will be a come back to council to review that, to make sure we're all on board with, you know, the mission and the structure of that organization. So, thank you.
I think that's all.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, real quick on new business lodging tax. So, okay, first of all, I was incredibly pleased to learn that our first year, the lodging tax brought in $53,370. Well over, you know, I actually thought it was going to be over 40, but did not expect it to be that high. So while the argument that one or two individuals make against the lodging tax, you know, as opposed to the majority of our community that really wanted this to happen like every other community, the one thing that has resonated with me, and that I've talked about several times, is I want this money to go back into community economic development. And so, you know, I don't agree with the contention that the village doesn't need this money. We certainly do. So I want to be more active about thinking about where it goes, so that we are reinvesting these funds to support the community, because that's the reason why you have a lodging tax, right? To support the impacts of tourism, and those are impacts on community members and also on infrastructure and so on. So I don't want to go in deep today, but I will mention a couple things that occurred to me as I was thinking about it this past week. One is we still have that completion of the sidewalk project from Fair Acres up to Stafford.
Yes,
That
we
was
do.
gonna finish up the Safe Routes to School Phase 1 project. So that's a possibility, and I think that would be a nice thing to do for the community. A lot of children live out there. A second thing that I've thought about is we have talked about the foray into participatory budgeting. So we could consider taking some of that money and figuring out that system in a smaller way, and ultimately, you know, figure out how do we really engage the widest group of community members to vote. So, you know, maybe we take 30,000 and we figure out a way, maybe through utility bills, to give everybody like a code or something, so that every household gets a vote and they can tell us what we invest that money in for the community. I think there are a couple other options as well, and I do not want to neglect, you know, things that we've heard tonight about sewer replacement and that sort of thing, you know, just fundamental infrastructure stuff. But I think we should do some different things with these funds around that, and I think it's important that we commit to that and show the community that there was a purpose behind instituting a lodging tax, just like every other community in the world, except for Cedarville, has one. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say, and so I thought maybe at our next meeting, we could talk about that more in depth. So maybe come back with ideas.
I do like the idea of doing the participatory budgeting by using some or all of it. And, there are different ways. There are different ways to do that. I mean, like, you can have citizens suggest projects, and then have the project that gets the most votes, or we can propose, or a combination, but.
Yep. Cool, thanks. All right. Okay, managers report.
Just a couple of things really quick. Again, please do not park in the posted no parking zones, 8 PM to 6 AM, Sunday through Thursday nights. I did get a text from Johnny just a little bit ago that they did tow 3 cars tonight. So please, do not park there. Nobody wants their car towed, and nobody really wants to tow your car, so please do not park
Where do they
there.
take the cars when they?
I don't know which tow service Vectron has contracted with. I think it is out of Xenia, but I can't swear to that. So, again, as Brian mentioned, spring cleanup is this week. Put your large items out on your regular trash day. Cut your grass, please. Denise is already getting high grass complaints, so please, cut your grass. We do have an ordinance.
And trim your bushes.
And trim your bushes
It was
back.
the ground was very wet.
It was, but
I cut my
it's,
grass
it's
yesterday.
cleaning up,
Yeah,
clearing
yesterday,
up.
that was the day.
So, and the last thing I have is a voice vote. The Regional Council of Governments, which kind of controls RETA, which is the Regional Income Tax Agency, we have a designee and an alternate. Currently, I am the designee, and we don't have an alternate appointed. This paperwork appointing a new designee has to be back by June the 17th. My recommendation is that the designee be the new manager, Josue, and that Colleen be listed as the alternate. So if I could have a voice vote of council on that, I will ask Brian to sign this and get that back in the mail to them, so that there is something on file. It's generally voting on board members and things like that. It's nothing earth-shattering, and if there is an urgent matter, it can be brought before council for direction on the vote.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
That's it.
All right, Judy?
Just that I gave you a draft for, what to do when you come to a council meeting if you want to speak, and just threw it out there at you. So if you want to make changes or suggestions, send it back with those, and I'll keep it going.
Can we, I noticed that the transition plan was after my report. Did anybody have any comments on the transition plan?
You mentioned people, yeah, I did, and I have to, I'll get them to you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Future agenda items.
So, just a question for you. You had mentioned getting a regular community health update. Shall we just schedule that for the first meetings of the month? Is
Sure.
that something you do want to do?
Sure.
So, okay. And then lodging tax revenue discussion
Yes.
and resolution for clerk treasurer. That's what I've got.
And I have,
And also, the resolution for your, oh no, you said that's already taken care of. Yep.
okay, and I have 2 contract renewals. Tech Advisors contract is up at the end of June, so that will have to go somewhere in the near future. And Colleen's contract is also up for renewal by June the 4th. So that will have to go on one of the next 2 meetings.
And we will be having an executive session at the next meeting. Same topic.
Okay. 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got your pool rate increase discussion, correct? Not legislation?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
And here's some stuff. I think that
Thank you for
purple
coming.
paper is. Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.